If you're a scientist working in TRL 1 to 4, the mindset, the skill set, and the tool set that you need for TRL 1 to 4 is very different than these three things that you need for TRL 4 to 7. We need to unbundle biologics. It's a very complex term. It involves a lot of different things. There is mass spectrometry, there is analytics involved, there is proteomics involved. Can we create a stack of these technologies and build excellence at each level? Today what happens is you start off as a scientist and you're doing something interesting, but you don't know who's going to run the race.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Biologics Platform Conversations, where we spotlight the leaders shaping the future of biopharmaceutical innovation in India and beyond. And today, we are honored to be joined by a visionary leader who is not only pioneering a very different kind of innovation, but also something from the inside pharma boardroom to the regulatory agency, but also from the heart of philanthropy-driven science for the public good. Dr. Abdur Rub is the CEO of ITRI, the Indian Translational Research Institute, a unique institution working across the sector of pharma, medtech, diagnostics to solve the India's most pressing R&D challenges. So, let's have the conversation get going. So, starting with the conversation, we know that ITRI's mission focuses on turning the research into the real world impact, like by bridging the translational gaps. May I know from your end, like what is the main mission of ITRI?
So, research spans from basic idea and concept that the scientist thinks about, and it has to go. And one way of looking at it is like a relay race. It's a team sport. It's not a one-man sport. So somebody starts with an idea and demonstrate proof of science. And then somebody has to demonstrate the proof of technology and production, and eventually it gets to the end user. And to give you another analogy, for instance, if you look at an iPhone, the iPhone itself is a complex assembly of multiple components. So at the phone level, there is TRL 1 to 9. At every component, there is TRL 1 to 9. For instance, if you look at the camera, there is a TRL. So at the component level, and the instruments and the tools that were used to build those components, they have their own TRLs. So it's like Russian dolls. It's one within the other. And largely in the ecosystem, when we speak of TRL 4 to 7, it is understood that we are looking at the very high level. But I think that's sort of a slightly misguided view. It is applicable at that level, but it has to go much deeper than that. At ITRI, we realized that, for instance, companies like Foxconn build iPhones in India. But largely what they're doing is they're getting components from different places. They're assembling it in India, really making it in India. How do we break that cycle? So in multiple technologies, whether it's biologics and others, most of the instrumentation, most of the components come from outside India, and they put it together, assemble it, and so on. ITRI's vision is to really, truly enable Make in India. We have to go to the component level. We have to be able to make the tools and technologies and the components, and then it will all come together at the very high level. And that's the gap that we set out to fill. And there are two specifications that we keep in mind. We don't want to work at the idea stage. There is plenty of, I can't say plenty, but there is reasonable funding available through the government and other entities. We want to focus on TRL 4 to 7 because this is where stuff gets missed out. A professor publishes a paper at TRL 3 and largely they don't have an incentive to take it further. And industry wants something at TRL 8. They don't want to pay something at TRL 3 to progress it to TRL 8. So this is called the value of death because things get missed out and lost out here at this. That's what we wanted to focus on. So TRL 4 to 7 and at the component level. These are the two broader focuses of ITRI.
Okay, that's great. As you mentioned that the value of death, when we talk about it, it often traps the promising academic discoveries, right?
True.
And before they even reach to the deployment. So what structural or funding mechanisms are most effective in ensuring the smoother lab to market deployment? And particularly speaking about the biologics and the novel therapeutics that we have.
Well, thanks for that. One key thing to keep in mind is the TRL 1 to 4. If you're a scientist working in TRL 1 to 4, the mindset, the skill set, and the tool set that you need for TRL 1 to 4 is very different than these three things that you need for TRL 4 to 7.
Yes.
For instance, you produce something at the lab level in a test tube. You want to make it at 50, 100 liter reactor level. So essentially, the science hasn't changed. Or you're scaling it up. But who needs this scale? Who should fund this scale up? Industry is not going to fund it. The mature industry, will fund production and so on and so forth when all of this technology transition has been de-risked. But up until then, it's very hard to find that funding. So this is where we found the gap. And then we said, we need to create common infrastructure. For instance, if you're a scientist, let's say you're working on biologicals, novel therapeutics, you don't need this facility in your lab all the time.
Yes.
Every 2-3 years, you're going to come up with a new molecule. But what are you going to do with this facility? So these need to be common facilities, common infrastructure that exists in places like, for instance, THSTI, for instance, CCAM, Mumbai Biocluster.
Yes.
These are for the country of a scale of India, we probably need about 8 to 10. And I hope that this demand grows further and further and so on. But at this time, I think we would need at least 4 to 5. We've got a few. We need more, and that's where the interest from ITRI towards Mumbai Biocluster solidified, and then we got into the conversation. But that's essentially, right now it's a blend of philanthropy, CSR, a little bit of industry funding plus government augmented funding. But they need to be national facilities. They cannot be institutional facilities.
So ITRI brings the academia, industry, and the donors and the government, everyone together.
Yes, you could say that.
The
Yes.
platform.
Yeah.
So how do you see this multi-stakeholder model which is there accelerating translational research success, like especially when we are talking about high impact sectors like biopharma?
Yeah.
How do
Yeah.
you see it in that perspective?
So, if you recall, I started the conversation by saying it's a relay race. So, essentially, what you're doing in platforms like Biologics and so on, you're getting all of the entire team that is going to. So, today, what happens is you start off as a scientist and you're doing something interesting, but you don't know who's going to run the race from 3 to 4. Notionally, but you don't know exactly, who is going to be your clinical partner, how you're going to. So you're at this time, you're simply saying, I'm going to play around with this, and if this idea works, then I'll deal with it later. But on platforms like Biologics, scientists get to meet all of the stakeholders, the entire team or potential team, and they get to plan out, okay, when I get to this level, then I need to hand this off to somebody else. And then when that get to this level, that needs to be handed off to some. So the entire teamwork comes into play. And I think that's the significance of it.
And that is how they network
Absolutely.
and they connect to
That
each other.
coordination, that networking, that synergy needs to be there upfront, not later.
When we talk about strategic infrastructures like the TRCs that we have, the translational research centers which are there, and centric to the ITRI's vision, what lessons from the development of these TRCs could be applied to a platform like Mumbai Biocluster that we have, and the similar initiatives that are there national wide?
It's a good question again. What do we learn? There's so much that's been done around the world. And this is very important to ITRI as well. So, biologics is not new. People have done that around the world. And this is also why ITRI has on board international partners like UK CPI, which is now more than 2 decades, has done biologics in the UK. They've learned a lot of lessons. And what we're doing is we are putting them in touch with the Biocluster and see what we can learn from that experience so that we don't have to repeat that. And I think in my view, a few things, one thing that I strongly propose is we need to unbundle biologics. It's a very complex term. It involves a lot of different things. For instance, there is mass spectrometry, there is analytics involved, there's proteomics involved. Can we create a stack of these technologies and build excellence at each level? Then what happens is then you are able to pull it all together, in unique ways to create different, whether it's biologics or novel therapeutics or vaccines. If you look at the horizontal level, they share many base technologies.
Yes.
Gene editing is shared, proteomics is shared, genomics is shared, and so on. So if you can create horizontal layers, then you can connect them in very interesting ways to produce different outcomes. And that approach should be taken.
Like creating a base or maybe foundation so that
Absolutely.
the approach can be much easier.
Absolutely.
And
One
so
other way of looking at it, for instance, You consider novel therapeutics as a puzzle,
Okay.
biologics as a puzzle with multiple pieces, but not all of these are unique. So if you create a base set of puzzle, like Lego blocks, for instance, right? You can create many things from the Lego blocks, but can we look at each component as a Lego piece so that it becomes easier for us to connect them in unique ways to produce different outcomes?
And when we talk about innovation, investments, especially as the India's global role is rising, when we specifically talk about biopharma. So India's innovation output is becoming stronger day by day, and yet the commercialization somehow lags behind. There are problems here and there. So, from a philanthropic and a translational perspective, what are the biggest challenges and also the opportunities for the Indian biotech industry, both domestically and also global stage?
Yeah, I think for Indian biotech industry, the opportunities are tremendous. And there are a few key reasons for that. One is that you will hardly find the kind of genetic diversity that you find in India.
Yes.
Right? So that's a great place for biologics discovery. I mean, this is sort of a dream for many researchers to have an ecosystem like that. Second, a very large population base. That means that the patient loads are high. And India is also unique in the sense that you see extremes of temperatures, extremes of weather conditions. So from the deployment perspective, how does a particular drug work or not work in various environmental conditions, the supply chains and so on? It's a fantastic place for development of biologics and therapeutics. And frankly, I think a small country like Taiwan ended up becoming the semiconductor capital of the world.
Yes.
India should be the biologics capital of the world. And we should make efforts and we should have that vision to make that happen in the next decade or so and put in all the resources to make that happen. I mean, I think all the elements are there, the biodiversity is there, genetic diversity is there, large population base is there. We just need, I think there are some efforts that are happening in that direction.
Like talking about the same thing, when we are saying that India is moving towards its 2024 47 innovation vision that we have from the government, where do you believe the translational research that is going on, particularly in the field of biopharmaceuticals, should be positioned within the nation priority? Like, where should it be positioned?
It should be the top priority.
It should be the top.
I know we are doing a lot of different things in various sectors, but there are opportunities that are time bound. And for instance, a lot is said about China, how China is leading in electric vehicles, but China didn't start today. They started 3 decades ago to start work in that direction, right? So what's the foresight? How do we and you can't prioritize everything all at once. If money was unlimited and so on, maybe you could do that. But given that we have constraints on resources, we need to prioritize. I would put biologics right up there as one of the number one priorities for translational research.
That's a great perspective. So we know that the platforms like Biologics workshop which we have aim to bring the science, industry, policy together, even the young innovators, young researchers, to the academicians and also to the industry. So in your view, what is the most critical conversation that such platforms which are there must enable to truly transform the India into the global pharma leader?
Yeah, I think to a large extent, to be very honest, biologics is already doing it. I mean, it's not, for sure, it is not an academic conference. Everybody knows that. There is a very, very strong representation from industry. There is a strong representation from contract research organizations, CDMOs, startups, MSMEs. It is a really well thought out, organized event that brings in the entire team of the relay race under one roof over 2 extended, sessions, 2 days of various types of sessions, including regulators, including government enablers or funding, so that they can gain priorities as to where the funding should be and so on. Of course, things can be better, but I think it's been a great few years of the biologics platform.
Before we conclude the whole conversation, I have 3 quick questions for you, and I want your instinctive answer for those questions.
Instinctive.
Yes. So the first answer, I want you to give me a phrase, only one phrase. The biggest enabler of translational success in biopharma is?
Funding, I would say.
In one word, what does Biologics Goa represent to you?
It's a catalyst.
So you just have to complete the sentence. Biologics is the platform for.
It's a one-stop solution provider from bench to buyer execution, I would say.
So, additionally, I have one more
Sure.
question for you. When we talk about capital and risk management or even the risk tolerance, often like shaping the whole translational outcomes, what role do you see as a philanthropic, the CSR funding, which is there? What role does this play in the hybrid financing model, like in enabling the high risk translational projects in
Yeah,
biopharma?
yeah. That's a very good question. So the CSR funding has been growing in India over the last several years, which is a substantial amount of funding. A lot of it goes towards healthcare, education, and so on. But given where we are, I think a significant portion of it should go towards enabling the translational infrastructure, because then what will happen is it will enable the industries to grow dramatically, and that pool of funding will
Yes.
keep growing because the industry is growing, output from academia is moving towards industry, making India globally competitive, and so on. It's a virtuous cycle. So CSR enablers should see it, and one of the things they should do is the pharma industries particularly, they should apportion a section of their CSR towards translational activities in a pre-competitive way, so that the entire ecosystem can be enabled and to be bigger and bigger.
That's a good perspective, actually. Thank you so much, sir.
All right.
It was a great conversation that I had with you. There are many different things, perspectives that I got to know from you about the funding, the CSR funding, and everything, and how the ITRI is working in bridging the whole gap between the industry, academia, and all the young innovators. And what we are doing right now with the conference is something similar.
Yeah.
It was great having the conversation with you. I
Absolutely.
hope you enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure is all mine. Thanks.